everybody, I'm Ryan and welcome to History Classroom Special. Today I'm going to talk about this solemn topic, which is September 11 attacks. As most people know, that was a heart-stricken day, a fatal day for lots of Americans, and now we remember it as a day of grief. And today I'm going to talk about the terrorism and the attacks on September 11th. So, on that day, as everybody would know, that the World Trade Center was attacked with a series of attacks and across America by a terrorist group called Al Qaeda. It was a Israel group of terrorists. Terrorism, in a broader definition, means an act that causes terror across that place. Terrorism. Terrorism, in this case, it is suicide in September 11th. Murder-suicide. Murder-suicide is the act of sacrificing yourself to murder lots of people, in this case 2,000 people. And now I'm going to talk about the collision. So it was started as a normal morning, as you would expect, and everybody went to work at about 7 o'clock, and the World Trade Center started to open, and everybody went to their offices normally. Nobody would know that an hour later, that at about 8:40, they saw a speck that grew larger and larger. That was a plane. They didn't think much about it. It was just going past them, beside them. But at 8:46, it struck the North Tower with a big boom, and the plane's fuel started coming down from the windows, igniting fire, and papers flew everywhere through the building, and everybody panicked and started to rush out of the stairs. It was 17 minutes later that the other plane struck the Southern Tower. So the World Trade Center consists of about 7 buildings, and the 2 main buildings, the North Tower and the South Tower, fell about a few minutes later after the crash, and it impacted on most of the buildings around it, including all the 7 buildings underneath it. And inside the plane, the pilot was a normal flying pilot. It started its flight about 7 o'clock, and it was in the middle of the flight when the 5 hijackers on board took over with some flight experience and their good English, which was why the commander of this attack chose them as this scheme. And it was they took control over the plane, and these were series of attacks. So it wasn't just the World Trade Center that got attacked that day. There were 4 attacks in total. So the third attack was attacked on the Pantheon, which was where the U.S. military lies. It had lots of sides, and the plane flew down like this and hit one of the sides. It wasn't as impactful as the World Trade Center. It hit one side, and after an hour, the Pantheon started working again. But the last attack was the most fortunate, as it was probably aimed at the White House or the U.S. Capitol. But after hearing the news and after the plane got hijacked, some of the passengers took control of the plane secretly and let it crash in a field, which didn't result in more injuries as the World Trade Center. So now go back to the World Trade Center. So when it fell down a few minutes after the crash, it resulted in lots of debris and fire and dust, and everybody were fleeing, and all that white dust included into gas. So lots of people needed to use gas masks to protect themselves, and it was a dreadful day for the Americans. Now I'm going to talk about Al Qaeda. So it was a few years before the attack that they started planning with this, with the planner taking out of it from. They were planning it in Afghanistan, and they couldn't plan out the scheme as quickly as they could because it was really still in process. And it was only a few years after until they took out the plan. And there's a theory that they chose that day because of 911 as the health emergencies, and that was the heart-stricken story of that fateful day. And I'll pay my respects to all those who died that day. And goodbye. Subscribe.